Hey guys, Effy Revenge here. I just came across a true story of betrayal and family drama that honestly chilled me to the bone. I definitely did not expect what happened there. Make sure to watch until the end because the finale changes everything. Let's get into it.
In our family, there were always two unwritten rules. The first, my sister Kira was a fragile treasure to be shielded from the harsh world. The second, I was the pillar, expected to stand tall no matter the cost. A 4-year age gap didn't make us friends. It made us opposites. My childhood memories smell of muscle rub and textbooks. I excelled in sports, bringing home gold medals and certificates, but my parents would only offer a dry nod. Well done, Anna. It's your responsibility to be the best. My success was treated as the baseline. With Kira, everything was different. If she drew a crooked flower at age 5, my father would immediately put it in a gilded frame. She learned quickly. She didn't need to reach for the stars. It was enough just to be sweet. When I was 12 and scraped my knee to the bone, my father said, "Get up. Don't embarrass yourself. You're strong." When Kira was 7 and let out a single sneeze, a medical council practically gathered around her. I was told to walk on eggshells so as not to disturb her recovery. Even our home reflected this hierarchy. Kira had the brightest room with a view of the garden, something straight out of a magazine. Spacious, cozy, filled with new furniture. Mine was at the end of the hallway. Smaller, colder. Always under threat of becoming a storage unit for Kira's things that she temporarily had no place for. But I fought for that room. Every single inch. I painted the walls myself. I bought the shelves with my first paycheck. It was the only place where I felt I actually owned something. My anchor. By the time I turned 26, almost nothing had changed. Except for one thing. I had become their personal ATM. I worked 2 jobs to pay my mortgage, yet my phone would ring almost every weekend. "Anna, Kira's phone broke and she needs to run her blog. Help her out. Anna, Dad is short on car repairs. You work so much, bail us out." They never asked if I had eaten that day. They only called when the treasure needed a new frame. I transferred the money. Over and over again, thinking I could buy their love. Not realizing that to them, I wasn't a daughter. I was a function. The one who would always provide a shoulder. The one who wouldn't say no. The one who could be used. They were certain I would endure it forever. They didn't know that very soon, they would destroy my only sanctuary themselves and erase me from their lives in a single night. And I didn't expect it either. When Kira's fiancé entered the picture, my parents treated it like a personal victory. Not hers, but theirs. He came from a good family, bringing the money, connections, and prospects they loved to brag about right into our reality. My mother beamed, and my father spoke of the future as if he'd already collected dividends from this union, while Kira simply took it all as her due. The preparations began immediately. A dress, second to none. A venue to make everyone gasp, and only the finest decor and photographers. Listening to them, I was struck by how they kept saying, "We decided," and "We're doing the wedding," yet Kira never actually seemed to be part of that. At a family dinner, my father proudly announced they were giving Kira $30,000 for the wedding to ensure everything was perfect, speaking as if he were handing her a Lifetime Achievement Award. I stayed silent because I knew exactly what that money represented. These weren't extra funds, they were their last. A safety net set aside for medical emergencies, for old age, for life itself. I remembered my mother complaining months ago about how hard it was to manage expenses and my father postponing car repairs. Yet for Kira, the money appeared. It always appeared for Kira. "It's a wedding, Anna. It happens once in a lifetime," my mother said without even looking at me. And I nodded as I always did. I hadn't contributed that cash directly, and no one had asked me to. but I had been investing in other ways for a long time. When they were temporarily short, I paid. When things were urgent, they called me. When Kira couldn't right now, it automatically became my problem. So those $30,000 were, in a way, partly mine too, even if no one would ever admit it. Kira acted as if this was the natural order of things, never asking where the money came from or offering to help. She just made demands. The restaurant was too simple. She wanted a different dress. The decor needed to be more expensive. I'd look at her and wonder if she truly didn't see it, or if it was just more convenient not to notice. When I finally cracked and asked if it bothered her that our parents were giving up their last cent, she didn't even look up. "It's their decision," she replied calmly. "Besides, you always dramatize everything." As usual, I was too serious and she was just living. In that moment, for the first time, I felt something beyond exhaustion, a dull, quiet, but dangerous irritation. A thought began to form that I'd never allowed myself before. This is wrong. But I kept quiet, as always, because in our family, the rule was simple. The truth didn't matter, only what was most comfortable to believe. That is exactly why no one even stopped to think how easy it would be to make me the villain. And then, the money vanished. I realized something was wrong even before a single word was spoken. My mother called that morning, but it wasn't her usual self, no. "How are you?" No small talk. She just told me to come over urgently. Her voice strained and unnervingly level, the way people sound when they are fighting to keep from snapping. I asked what happened, but she didn't answer, only repeated for me to just come over before hanging up. Already, I felt a sickening knot tighten in my stomach. When I arrived, the family home was uncharacteristically quiet, but it wasn't a cozy silence. It felt like a room where people had just been screaming and suddenly stopped. My father sat at the table, his jaw clenched so hard his cheekbones protruded, while my mother paced back and forth, pretending to be busy. And then there was Kyra. She was sitting on the sofa, buried in her phone, looking far too calm. In a room where the tension was stretched to a breaking point, she was the only one who looked relaxed, almost bored. When I asked what happened, no one answered at first. My father only let out a heavy sigh, and my mother stopped pacing but refused to look at me. Only Kira slowly raised her eyes for a split second before looking away, and in that brief glance, I saw something strange, not fear or confusion, but calculation. "Tell her," my mother said quietly to my father. He rubbed his face and finally looked at me, saying the money was gone. The words hung in the air. I didn't even understand at first, asking, "What money?" And he replied harshly, "The money. From the account. The 30,000. I felt a hollow pit open up inside me. I asked how it could just vanish, but no one explained or rushed to speak. They just stared at me for too long and with too much intensity. In that silence, it became clear that this wasn't just a conversation. It was an interrogation. I turned my gaze to Kira, who was no longer looking at her phone but straight at me, wearing a faint, almost imperceptible smile that sent a chill down my spine. In that moment, I realized she already knew everything, and she had already decided how this would end. I took a step forward and started to say, "You don't think," but I didn't finish the sentence because the expression on my father's face gave me the answer. They did think it. Something inside me snapped, not because I was being accused, but because they were so ready to do it without evidence or questions, simply because it was more convenient. I looked at Kira again, and this time she didn't look away. She held my gaze, calm and confident, like someone who had already made her move and was just waiting for the pieces to fall. I realized then that she had already chosen her villain. At some point, Kira snapped. It wasn't just crying, she was completely overwhelmed. She began to scream through her tears, choking and gasping for air, as if she were the one who had been betrayed, as if something had just been stolen from her. My mother rushed to her instantly, pulling her close and whispering that everything was okay, that she was there, and that no one would hurt her. Against that backdrop, Kira suddenly shrieked. It was her. Anna took the money. From that moment, there was no stopping her. She wept and shouted simultaneously, her words tumbling over one another, each one sounding like a formal indictment. She claimed I always knew about the account, that I was always lurking around, and that I was just waiting for the perfect moment because enough was never enough for me. I tried to interject, but they simply drowned me out. My father's voice rose immediately, asking if I even realized what I had done. I told him I hadn't done anything, but they didn't even let me finish the sentence. Don't lie to our faces, he barked. Meanwhile, my mother held Kira and looked at me as if I had already confessed, asking how I could do this to my own sister right before her wedding. I tried to speak louder to be heard, begging them to at least verify her claims. But my father was already shouting for me to stop making excuses, saying everything was already clear. Kira broke into another fit of screaming, pointing a finger at me and accusing me of always being jealous, claiming she saw the way I looked at her and that I just wanted to ruin everything because I couldn't stand her being happy. She said this through gasps and tears, but with a malice so sharp it no longer felt like a breakdown. It felt like a death sentence. I screamed back, asking if they even heard me, but it was impossible to reach them. We hear everything, my mother snapped, adding that they were ashamed of me. That phrase hit harder than anything else. Ashamed of me? After they raised me and trusted me, this is what I do. Enough! My father slammed his palm against the table so hard I flinched, demanding an end to the performance. I tried to keep explaining, but they cut me off again and again, never letting me finish a single thought, and I realized I was just being shouted down. They weren't listening. They were silencing me. Kira continued, claiming I had always been this way, and asking if they really thought I helped them for no reason, asserting that I calculated everything and remembered every cent. It wasn't just an accusation anymore. It was an attempt to rewrite my entire character, to turn me into a person I had never been. She told them to look at me, mocking how I couldn't even explain myself properly. When I finally snapped and yelled that it was because they wouldn't let me speak, it only made things worse. There, see? She's aggressive. She's always been like this, Kira cried. In that moment, it became undeniably clear that everything I did was being weaponized against me. If I spoke, I was making excuses. If I stayed silent, I was guilty. I looked at the three of them and suddenly realized I was completely alone. No matter how much I tried to explain, it wouldn't change a thing, because as usual, they didn't want the truth. After that, everything spiraled out of control. My father stopped talking and started acting harshly, decisively, as if he had to get rid of me right that second while I still stood there trying to speak. He went into my room and began grabbing my things, moving fast and rough, not looking, just ripping them from closets and shelves and stuffing them into black trash bags, as if my clothes, my books, and my documents were nothing but garbage that was long overdue for disposal. I tried to stop him, telling him those were important things, that he couldn't do this, but he wouldn't even listen. He just shoved my hands away and kept going, telling me I had disgraced them, that I was a thief, that I had no place there anymore, and that he never wanted to see me again. And my mother, she didn't stop him. She followed him in and began to help. With that same coldness, that same irritation, she pulled out my belongings and threw them into bags, repeating that I had betrayed the family, that I had destroyed everything, and that after such a thing, decent people leave on their own and never come back. She wasn't protecting me. She was finishing me off. At one point, a framed diploma fell off the shelf and the glass shattered. But no one even paused. They just stepped over it and continued as if it meant nothing. As if I meant nothing. The bags filled quickly, one after another, and everything I possessed in that house was turned into a heap of items to be tossed out and forgotten. And they did toss them out. My father set the bags outside one by one, then came back, walked right up to me, grabbed my arm, and forcibly pulled me toward the exit. He didn't let me speak or stop. He just dragged me through the hallway like a stranger, like someone who was no longer welcome. At the door, he literally shoved me outside. Hard, sharply, like he was disposing of a burden. I stumbled, barely keeping my feet, and the door slammed in my face. Almost immediately, I heard them starting to change the locks inside. Calmly, without a pause, as if I didn't exist anymore. Then, the door opened once more. My mother stepped out onto the porch and looked at me as if I weren't her child, but someone she despised. In a cold voice, she told me I had to return every cent I stole, and if I didn't, they would go to the police. Then she turned around and closed the door for the last time. I was left on the street with those bags and a silence that suddenly felt too loud. I looked up. On the second-floor balcony stood Kira. She wasn't crying anymore. She was just watching, calmly, with a cold, attentive gaze, as if checking to see if everything had gone according to plan. In that moment, it became undeniably clear. I hadn't just been kicked out. I had been erased from the family, from their lives, as if I had never existed, and they hadn't even bothered to check if the blame was actually mine. I walked away from the house because standing there any longer felt humiliating. I moved aimlessly, clutching those bags, until the realization hit me. I had nowhere to go. That was when it washed over me, not as tears, but as a sharp, suffocating rage that made everything inside me tighten. I hadn't just been kicked out. I had been discarded like a thief, like a disgrace, like someone who could be erased in 5 minutes. And it was done by my own family, the people I had helped countless times and never turned away. The more I replayed it, the more the pain was replaced by a pure, cold fury at how it was done. I kept returning to that moment, but no longer to the words. I looked at the mechanics of it all. Suddenly, it didn't look like chaos or raw emotion anymore. Kira hadn't been frantic. She hadn't been confused or trying to understand what happened. She went straight for the throat, straight to the accusations, knowing exactly what to say. That was what stuck with me the most, because that isn't how someone acts when they've just lost something. That is how someone acts when they've prepared. In that second, something inside me snapped. I realized that all this time I had been trying to defend myself, trying to explain or prove the obvious. And by doing that, I had placed myself in the position of a guilty person making excuses. A new state of mind took over, cold, hard, and devoid of any desire to explain anything. It became clear that it didn't matter if they believed me or not. What mattered was what actually happened. Instead of asking, why did they do this to me? A much more unpleasant and accurate question surfaced. What did she actually do? If Kira was that confident in accusing me, it meant she knew exactly where the money went. From that moment on, everything changed. This was no longer about excuses. This was about digging up the truth. And that was when I remembered the tablet. I rifled through the drawers in my apartment quickly, almost frantically, opening one after another until I finally found it. And in that instant, everything inside me seemed to pull into a single point, because this was the moment where everything would either fall into place or get much worse. The tablet powered on, and I didn't even hesitate with the password because I knew it too well. She hadn't changed it since childhood. It was her birth date. When the screen unlocked, I opened the banking app, and within seconds, I realized the money hadn't just vanished. Before me wasn't an empty void, but a history of transactions long, detailed, and linked together in a chain where every individual expense might have seemed random, but together they formed a very clear picture. These weren't wedding expenses or necessary payments. They were high-end boutiques, online orders, and transfers to someone else, broken into small parts as if specifically designed not to attract attention. The longer I looked, the stronger the feeling became that this was done calmly and deliberately, not out of impulse. But everything became undeniably clear when I opened her messages, because there wasn't a single loophole for doubt left. She discussed these purchases, sent photos, and laughed about them, all while maintaining a conversation with a man who had absolutely nothing to do with her fiancé or her perfect upcoming wedding. This wasn't just flirting or hints. It was a full relationship, hidden, confident, as if she didn't see it as a problem at all. The further I read, the more I understood that this wasn't just about the money. It was the parallel life she was leading without a second thought for the consequences. Then, I stumbled upon the messages to this man where she wrote, with total composure, that if anything ever came to light, she would handle it, and that she had a backup plan for who to pin it on. That was when it all finally made sense. It was a decision, made in advance. Calm, precise. I wasn't just framed or accused at a convenient moment. I had been selected beforehand as the simplest, most reliable target to take the fall. I sat there with the tablet in my hands, and instead of grief or despair, a new state of mind took over, cold and collected. There was no panic and no stray thoughts, only a sharp realization of what had happened, and exactly what I had to do next. The phone started exploding with calls almost as soon as I set the tablet down. My father didn't even say hello. He immediately began demanding that I return the money, speaking harshly and sharply, as if he were talking to an enemy rather than his daughter. My mother shouted over him into the receiver, adding that they were ashamed of me, that I had disgraced the family, and that I had to pay everything back immediately, no matter how I did it. I listened in silence, not because I had nothing to say, but because now I knew everything. Kira called too, but she wasn't screaming like she had before. She spoke calmly, almost softly, as if nothing had happened, as if I were the one who had put her in an awkward position, and now she was forced to deal with it. There was something particularly revolting about this composure, because behind it lay a much more carefully crafted lie. She told me I had to make things right, that I didn't realize what I was doing, and that everything could still be settled quietly if I just returned the money and stopped denying it. In that moment, I was finally convinced of just how far she had gone. She wasn't afraid because she was certain everything was under her control. She thought I would break. She thought that, in the end, I would agree to help, just as I always had. But my silence only made them angrier. They continued to pressure me, calling and demanding, threatening me with the police and the consequences, telling me I would ruin my life for good if I didn't come to my senses. And so I told them I would come, that I would return everything. On the other end of the line, the relief was instant. I could hear it. They exhaled, believing that everything was under control and would end exactly the way they needed it to. I hung up the phone and, for the first time in all of this, allowed myself to smile. Because I really was going to return everything, it just wasn't going to be the money. The atmosphere in the country club hall was suffocatingly luxurious. Expensive wines, the scent of Dutch lily paid for by my parents with the last of my savings and fake smiles. This was the rehearsal dinner, Kira's triumph. She sat at the head of the table in a white silk dress, radiant beside Maxim. My parents beamed with pride. Finally, entering high society. I entered the hall silently, right in the middle of the toasts. The music died down. My mother turned pale and gripped the edge of the tablecloth, while my father stood up abruptly, his face flushing a deep crimson. "You aren't welcome here, Anna. Did you come to return the money or to disgrace us further?" He hissed, low enough so the future in-laws wouldn't hear. I didn't answer. I was frighteningly calm, walking up to a waiter frozen with a tray near the entrance. I handed him a heavy stack of white envelopes. "Please distribute these to every guest. It's a surprise from the bride." I personally placed one of the envelopes in front of Maxim. He frowned, looking at me with confusion, but opened it first. While the guests curiously rustled their papers, I walked over to the equipment. The remote was lying on the edge of the table as if waiting for me, and I slotted the flash drive into the projector. "What are you doing? Get away from there this instant." Kira jumped up, her face contorted with terror. She had seen Maxim's expression shift as he read the first page. She lunged at me, trying to snatch the remote, her nails digging painfully into my wrist. "Dad, get her away. She's going to ruin everything." My father had already raised his hand to shove me away from the projector, but at that moment, Maxim stood up abruptly and intercepted Kira's arm. His grip was so tight she let out a yelp. "Sit down." His voice was quiet, but it carried such icy steel that Kira faltered and sank back into her chair in horror. Maxim looked at me and gave a short nod. "Show us." The blow was devastating. The screen flashed to life. Instead of the touching childhood photos prepared for the wedding, everyone saw hotel receipts from Las Vegas. The next slide showed Kira's selfie from a luxury suite, embracing another man, with that same $12,000 Hermes bag sitting on the table purchased on the very day the fund suddenly vanished. A deathly silence fell over the room, only to explode into a roar a second later. My mother covered her face with her hands, sliding down in her chair. My father stood motionless, his gaze darting from the screen to Kira, who was now simply wailing, buried in the tablecloth. Their entire house of cards, built on my blood and money, was collapsing in real time. Maxim slowly turned the last page in his envelope. There lay the messages where Kira called him a convenient wallet and laughed about how stupid Anna would now be paying off the debts from her vacation. He slowly took off his ring and placed it on the table in front of Kira. He looked at her, as if she were thin air, and walked out of the hall. His father, a seasoned lawyer, looked at my parents with such contempt that my mother let out an involuntary gasp. "There will be no wedding," he snapped, addressing my father. "And tomorrow, my assistants will send you the bills for everything we've already paid for, to the last cent." I looked at them all, at the parents who had kicked me out of my own home for the sake of this lie, at the sister who had turned into a pathetic smudge on the expensive carpet. I felt no pity, only a cold, clean emptiness. And then the truth became louder than their lies. The hall, which only half an hour ago had seemed like the pinnacle of my parents' social success, now resembled a plane crash site. Maxim didn't look back. He simply walked out the door, and his entire family followed behind him like an icebreaker. Relatives and friends who had been discussing the color of the napkins just that morning were now hurriedly gathering their things, trying not to meet my eyes. They felt ashamed, not for Kira, but for having witnessed such a disgrace. Kira slid to the floor right there in her silk dress. She was no longer screaming. She just stared into the void, expensive mascara smearing across her cheeks. Her entire world, a world of free money, lies, and endless adoration, had turned to ash during a 15-minute slideshow. My father stood by the table, leaning heavily on a chair. He had aged 10 years. His shoulders, always so proud when he spoke of his younger daughter's achievements, were now slumped. My mother sobbed, covering her face with a napkin bearing the initials of the failed newlyweds. And then, what I expected least began to happen. They started making excuses. "Anna, honey," my mother's voice trembled. She took a step toward me, trying to catch my eye. "We didn't know. We just wanted what was best for the family. We thought you were strong, that you'd understand. Kira is still so young, so foolish." Foolish? For the first time that evening, I allowed myself a smirk. She was smart enough to drain your account, frame me, and convince you to humiliate and trample your own daughter. My father looked up. There was no longer any rage in his eyes, only a sticky, pathetic plea. "Anna, listen, Maxim. His father will send the bills. We don't have that kind of money. We put everything into this evening. If you don't help, they'll take the house. You've always bailed us out. You're our eldest. You have to help your sister fix this." I looked at him and felt nothing. No anger, no resentment. Only a cold, crystalline clarity. The man who a week ago was changing the locks on my room and calling me a thief and a tumor was now asking me to pay the price for his favorite child's lies. "I owe you nothing." My voice sounded remarkably steady in that ringing silence. "But we're family." Kira shrieked from the floor, finally finding her voice. "You can't leave us like this, sis." I adjusted the collar of my jacket and slowly walked toward the exit. At the very doors, I turned around. "You made your choice that Friday at dinner. I no longer have a family." I stepped out into the cool spring evening. The air smelled of rain and freshness, and for the first time in a long while, it was easy to breathe. I had no parental home, no family, and no past. But I had something much more important: self-respect and freedom.
Sarah's story ended in triumph, but at what cost? Shattered health, paranoia, and a constant fear for her child. Was it really worth trying to save the family until the very last moment? And is Mark just as guilty as his mother? Was he simply a weak pawn? Or is his silence just as much of a crime as the toxin in that cup? I'm waiting for your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you soon.